People are so worried about flock cameras. Meanwhile, institutionally backed Axon is pioneering ways to turn streetlights into interconnected camera systems. This is Josh Eisner, president of Axon. There are 100,000 flock cameras, but there are 85 million CCTV cameras in America. Axon is connecting them and storing their feed in a large AI-trained database model called the Axon Cloud, operated by Microsoft Azure and Amazon Web Service data centers. Axon is also attaching new devices called the Axon Outpost to traffic camera systems, and they have government contracts for manufacturing tasers and body cameras. Trump put $5 million into Axon before their $220 million deal. This was reported by CNBC June 26th. They sell the government software for real-time operations related to digital evidence management, incident reporting, and other things. That's called the Axon Fusus integration platform, which I'm going to talk a lot about. Law enforcement is able to directly connect to fixed, private, and public interstate video systems. They also specify mobile feeds. So what I am assuming, based upon the verbiage they're using and everything else that they've disclosed, is that they not only have access to your, home security systems, but possibly even your computer. I know that was in the Vault 7 leaks. Axon Fusus have been the main provider for automated license plate recognition and live video from street existing infrastructure for the last 9 years. The broader infrastructure for civic surveillance is anchored by this enterprise, Axon Enterprise, and yet people really only want to talk about Flock. But they're ignoring all of the other cameras that are really commonplace in their day-to-day. See, nobody protested. Nobody was cutting down surveillance cameras, well, at least not nearly as much as we're seeing now with like Flock, when people were just putting up safety cameras outside of their store. And yet a lot of those are still interconnected to the same system. Axon Enterprises Incorporated is led by the founder and chief executive officer Patrick W. Smith, or Rick Smith, President Joshua Eisner, chief operating officer Cameron Brooks, and chief product officer Jeff Koonens. Just look at their team. Look at this one lady. And while I just told you about their contracts for police and the Department of Homeland Security, especially Immigration Customs Enforcement, Axon has a much bigger footprint than just electronic control devices, which you understand to be tasers, and body-worn cameras, which I think everybody generally agrees body-worn cameras are a good thing. I think unintentionally, sometimes it actually proves that cops are innocent, which is much to the dismay of certain communities in the United States. Axon's corporate trajectory centers on consolidating access to 85 million closed-circuit television cameras. Now, you think that that number is an exaggeration. That was an estimation for what the United States would have in like 2021. Given the progress we've seen in like telecommunications and home security systems with Vivint and, Ring cameras, Google Home systems, all of that stuff, I have no doubt that the United States has roughly 85 million CCTV cameras, especially when we had like 70 to 75 million in 2016. How much has changed in just the last decade? Do you think that people can't just go set up another camera? Now, this surveillance aggregation relies on the Axon Cloud, which is hosted on the Microsoft Azure and Amazon Web Service data centers. The Axon Cloud holds, quote, high impact status under the Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program, or FedRAMP, which grants the company explicit authorization to process and store highly sensitive, unclassified data for federal, civilian, and law enforcement entities. Axon Enterprise is publicly traded on the NASDAQ. You can go look at the ticker Axon. Just like many things that we've seen Donald Trump give additional investment into, or additional lip service, which he's done for Dell and for a variety of other things, even drone manufacturers that his son co-owns, they've continued to increase in their stock price over time. Now, this relies again on the FedRAMP high impact cloud architecture hosted on Microsoft Azure and Amazon Web Services. And, it would be surprising that those things actually don't go down given the amount of failures we've seen by Amazon Web Services. But that's because they're a priority, right? Axon Fusus specializes in real-time crime center software. So it's not just body cameras, it's not just tasers, it is aggregating public and private video streams. Yes, private as well. Like, that's not an exaggeration. I'm not just bullshitting that for a YouTube video. I wouldn't need to. It would still be endearing enough to know that they have access to all of the public ones, like what we're seeing at every single traffic light. You may know that since the Vault 7 leaks, federal agencies have been able to backdoor into your computer or like your TV or something. I'm really doubtful a federal agency wants to do that, but if they really needed to, they could. You probably heard during the Super Bowl bad press about Ring, the Ring doorbell camera advertisements about using artificial intelligence to just track who comes to your door. Of course, to find lost dogs and Trust me, bro. When Axon Fusus lets law enforcement and federal agencies access these private feeds, usually with minimum communication, thanks directly to Amazon, Google, Vivint, or Ring, they can just see what your home is seeing. So if you have this, you already have the integrated system and you're paying for it. Also, police can do something called war scrolling, where they just kind of get your information from your Wi-Fi router and like packets of data for every device that's connected to that Wi-Fi. It's not like it's just federal agencies. I mean, like local police could. Now, are they going to? Probably not. But if you're really serious about your criminal endeavors, you know, they could try. Fusus was fully acquired by Axon following an initial $21 million minority investment, May of 2022, and then a massive step-up acquisition finalized January of 2024, of course, the election year. That was for approximately $241.3 million. Fusus is now integrated into Axon's real-time operations division. Complementing all of this surveillance technology and their software in their data centers, Axon has the Axon Outpost. This is something you probably would have heard about because many people are talking about it now, just as they're talking about Flock, because, I mean, it's hard to ignore when you see actual cameras just being put up randomly everywhere. And then, of course, people are cutting it down and like making satirical videos where they're like totally not telling you to go cut it down, but they definitely are telling you to go cut it down. And they're giving you like step-by-step detailed expressive videos on how you should and could go cut it down and maybe get away with it. By the way, if you do that, you're probably facing around 18 years in prison, which I think is a little ludicrous for just cutting a random pole down. But, you know, anyways, the Axon Outpost here is what they're going to attach to street lamps. And they don't really need to, but it's an additional infrastructure because it does more than just record the street. Because there's already cameras at street lamps and stoplights, but they're updating them. And now these systems also just like directly catalog license plates and information from inside your car, because a lot of these cars have amazing updated firmware. Quote, the Axon Outpost deploys fixed hardware attachments designed to connect to existing municipal traffic signals directly to automated license plate recognition. So that's not just them using the video networks that they already have access to, but it's also using this amazing apparatus to just track your car. You think they would be able to do that without the like, you know, additional bullshit that they're adding? I feel like this is like another money laundering scheme. Like if they really want to be impressive, why can't they just, you know, do it without mounting this apparatus on like every stoplight? Now, this hardware integration is kind of new, but again, they did already have access to these cameras. This new hardware is managed under Axon's connected video and sensor product teams. In parallel, Flock Safety, again, operates specialized, localized ALPR networks comprising approximately 100,000 units across America. I should say so far, they've been growing like a weed, despite some people trying to pull some weeds out. Unlike Axon, Flock Safety maintains a private venture capital backing, drawing investments from Andreessen Horowitz, of course, and Founders Fund, and is guided by the founders Garrett Langley, Paige Todd, and Matt Fury. Now you see endless content about Flock. It's really hard to miss. Again, when you see cameras actually being put up in real life, everybody's talking about them. Oh, did you see this? Look, there's a whole website, DFlock. Now, there's totally no way that these supposedly grassroots, anti-establishment, anti-big tech surveillance apps are possibly assisted by a competitor like Axon, but some people are reporting that influencers are being paid to go and make videos on Flock. Is it not still a concern? Who knows? Of course, they could still be a concern, but also the companies maybe motivating other people to go talk about it might be just as concerning, and nobody's talking about them. I'm not saying it's that big of a conspiracy. Maybe it isn't. The primary catalyst for Axon's infrastructure expansion was, again, that acquisition of Fusus for $240 million in 2024. Now, Fusus is a remarkable thing because when you're in public education or, you know, university, say, for example, if you were to go here to the National Crime and Counterterrorism Center, they talk about these real-time crime center integrations. You'd think that's like a bunch of dudes, like NCIS, or ladies too, whatever, just sitting. There's a bunch of big screens and they're just like monitoring the 24/7. No, they have these really advanced AI systems, primarily developed by Israeli firms, which I'm going to talk more about, to monitor all of this data. And that means monitoring phone calls, which again, I told you about from the Department of Homeland Security in their contracting. I will have more in depth on that later. And these real-time crime center platforms enable law enforcement agencies to coordinate fixed public cameras, right? Video networks from, you know, businesses, traffic monitoring, as well as the mobile feed from all of the body cameras in their police department and their aerial drones, right? And by installing this like Fusus core unit at a local law enforcement center, they can aggregate all of this video from private private businesses and residences is like the most important part that they like just kind of brush by when they're describing this in their public information. Information from property owners unified into a single operational interface called the Axon Respond. So again, when they're watching the streets with these new, Axon devices to capture roadway telemetry from cars, they're not just watching cars and they have boxes around the cars. You've seen these like entertaining videos. That's clearly how the system must work. There's nothing else going on, right? Well, Axon has, again, that Axon Outpost with this Axon Response system. So like it's just AI automatic tracking plus the like signal tracking of the exact information transmitted by your car. So it doesn't take long, right? Like federal agencies used to have to do this more meticulously. Now they can just contract these third-party companies, which are authorized by the federal government to manage all of this information and track you. And then they cooperate with some of the like biggest names in big tech. Like again, Microsoft, Google, Amazon Web Services, they're using these cloud-hosted AI models to manage all of it. Because, of course, why would they not be training an AI system to do all of this? Why would they want to employ more people in law enforcement? Law enforcement already is losing more people every single year. It's like one of the most unhappy forms of employment generally. Like they have a really insane turnover rate. Also, these police may be getting cancer, depending on who is stalking their patrol cars. I would love to talk more about that. These AI models that they're designing include something called Draft One, an automated reporting platform that ingests body-worn camera and audio to generate police reports without the police having to manually transcribe everything from the video. So like an AI system is helping write police reports as well. Is that reliable? Can you trust the third-party company to be perfect and accurate if it's trying to please a client, if it has a fiduciary responsibility to police departments or the federal government? Would they possibly have a certain bias? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just conspiratorial here, just thinking out loud. Financial disclosures about Axon, which there are so many other companies which I'd love to talk about, but looking minimally at financial disclosures, especially the late June period, show that Donald Trump again purchased between 1 million and 5 million in Axon Enterprise stock. That occurred alongside reports that U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement was negotiating a $220 million contract with Axon to produce these non-lethal weapons, body-worn cameras, and cloud-hosted digital evidence management tools. Does that mean that they're going to deport like 20 quintillion illegals? Definitely not. In fact, Mark Roseblum was let go from the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Statistics, because he said very point blank that they were opposed to releasing all of those data points. They won't tell you exactly how many people are being deported. Despite this, immigration czar who actually has no power, Tom Homan, saying that they're deporting like a quintillion fucking illegals, they won't prove it. They can't prove it. They have all of these privatized little like warehouse prisons, many of which that they sold and then others that they acquired, but they can't prove that they're deporting all of these people. At most, from insider information, they've deported like 800,000 people, and it's been like a year and a half. At that rate, they're not going to deport even more than 4 million. So they have all of this technology and they have all of this funding for the Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Patrol, and Immigration Customs Enforcement, but they're not deporting or even detaining millions of people. But they're going to lie using the census. They're going to claim, oh yeah, we totally convinced 2 million additional people to just leave. Now, is there a gap in that data? Absolutely. Because if they know that they might be deported and identified, why would a person who's here without permanent residency or legal citizenship go and tell the federal government that they are here illegally? I mean, come the fuck on now. Do you think the government's going to be honest about this? Unsurprisingly, Axon, since they've gained all of these amazing contracts and they have good friends in federal agencies, has expanded its congressional lobbying, mostly focusing on federal law enforcement technology and appropriations, especially as it pertains to the Department of Homeland Security. And I told you about the Department of Homeland Security's previous Office of Procurement Operations in a different video. You can just go Google their leaked contracts. They have stuff to put on like every phone to like bleach bit your phone. It's not just like the Israeli technology that ICE was using. And it's not just like Pegasus, but like they have a bunch of very interesting shit. Namely that the Department of Homeland Security was listening to, recording, and interpreting every single police phone call in the United States in a year. Now, if they can do every single police phone call and they have strict control over cell service providers, do you think they can't possibly just get all of the information from every phone call? Maybe that's a little crazy to say. Some people were questioning me on that claim in a previous video, but we have evidence that federal agencies were doing exactly that. Specifically, the NSA was doing that, warrantlessly collecting United States emails and storing them in the Utah data center, something I said in a previous video. Well, given this additional information and they're contracting with private companies, I wouldn't say that it's impossible that like every phone call is actually recorded. Are they actively listening to every phone call? No. Am I trying to say that you're being gang stalked? No. Maybe you are though. And I'm not just talking about like Axon or Flock. Like again, like people will be like, oh, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Well, no, I've talked about other things in detail, even in just rambling TikTok videos that have less amazing evidence that I get to provide you guys here. But when we're talking about like tactical signals intelligence in companies beyond just federal agencies, Cognite, which is one that's kind of new and I think is very important, has something called FalcoNet and automated call biometrics where they are genuinely trying to track your phone calls. So I'm not just making this shit up. American law enforcement patrol vehicles are increasingly being outfitted with tactical signals intelligence hardware manufactured by Israeli defense contractors. A key vendor in this is Cognite Software Ltd. This is an intelligence analytics company headquartered in Herzliya, Israel. This company spun off from Variant Systems. Cognite's executive leadership retains direct ties to the Israeli defense and intelligence apparatus. Its chief executive officer, Elad Sharon, is a former officer in the Israeli Defense Forces and an intelligence corps and graduate of Reichman University, the IDC Herzliya, and Tel Aviv. The senior strategic officer, Nadav Arjaman, is a former director of Shin Bet, Israel's internal security service. What an amazing strategic officer. I trust that guy with all of my information immediately. Let's give him all of it. Chief financial officer, David Abadi, is a former financial comptroller for Polycom, EMEA, and auditor at PricewaterhouseCoopers in New York and Israel, running both operations. What's the difference at this point? And Chief Product Officer Gil Cohen, the former general manager of NICE Systems voice recording division and the former CEO of Telefonica Israel. Unsurprisingly, they have a system meant particularly to track cell phone information. It's not just the metadata of your phone, right? It's not just where your phone's been and like who you've called, but particularly like what you are saying on your phone call. That is not up in the air. It's not really up for debate very much anymore. Is it actively being used against you is the important question at this point. Cognite manufactures FalcoNet, a tactical cellular interception device, usually called like a Stingray. This is exactly what was placed outside of the White House in 2019. I'll tell you all about that in an upcoming video. This is a mobile subscriber identity catcher, or an IMSI. This, when activated, mimics a legitimate cell tower. So cops are sitting in these patrol vehicles and they are operating a system that mimics a cell tower. Are they giving themselves testicular cancer? We don't know. Maybe. Forcing all nearby mobile phones within operational range to disconnect from their commercial wireless networks without you knowing and establish a connection to the vehicle-mounted interceptor, which allows law enforcement officers to capture unique hardware identifiers like the IMSI and IMEI numbers and track real-time geolocation and metadata of your phone and intercept unencrypted cellular traffic from both you, a target, and anybody, like any uninvolved bystander in the immediate vicinity. They could just get anybody's phone information. Is that schizo? No, because they are telling you that they definitely are capable of doing that. The inclusion of these tactical packages accounts for a substantial capital cost. You might think that police departments are just really shitty at managing their budget, and maybe they are. Maybe Bubba is, making some ammo go missing at the police department. Probably not. But you'd think like a patrol car is only like $71,000, right? What could they possibly? I mean, what? They got to add some technology. Maybe it's $10,000, $20,000 more. No, $1.1 million. $1.1 million per unit. The Texas Department of Public Safety allocated $4.5 million to acquire 4 specialized Chevy Tahoes outfitted with Cognite Falcotech packages, tactical border surveillance. Again, they're using it under the guise of we're totally deporting a fuck ton of people. Trust me, bro. Similar tactical packages have been deployed by municipal and county law enforcement agencies across Florida and, for maritime border monitoring operations. It's not just the border though. Like if they are rolling this out to the point where it's like state level at a bunch of different states, it's going to be integrated. Obviously it's just a large cost, but imagine what the next generation is like. Imagine what it'll be like 5 years from now or 10 years from now when they have more and more funding or more integration, or even if it becomes cheaper. At the software level, Cognite provides a new law enforcement program called Nexite, which again is something I was talking to my father-in-law about. This completely fucking ridiculous. This is a decision intelligence platform. What is that? Well, it's designed for lawful interception and monitoring. This is them listening to your phone call. Nexite ingests massive streams of intercepted telecommunications data, deploys analytics tools, aka AI, including voice biometrics, automated speaker identification and keyword spotting, and natural language processing, and automated relationship mapping. So when they intercept your phone call, they decode everything you say in your phone call, who you are to the person you're talking to, and what you're talking about, and they make it very readable for the police. These analytic capabilities interface with broader federal data collection initiatives, which we've seen through social media. Again, it's not like they don't publicly just tell you that they have amazing working relationships with Discord or YouTube or Instagram and Facebook, now Twitter and TikTok. I mean, like literally, the United States Department of Digital Services manages TikTok. It's not just Oracle servers, but it's like a U.S. federal agency is managing TikTok. Yeah, we have some former like Unit 8200 Israeli officers that like help conduct the community relations, community guidelines aspect of TikTok, but they're cooperating with federal agencies. And then as we know, they like report information both to third-party groups and think tanks, but also to like federal agencies, right? And so we know the Department of Homeland Security has funded programs to record, transcribe, and catalog 911 calls, as we talked about earlier here. And when this is linked with major commercial wireless service providers like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and then major social media platforms, these analytics platforms give federal and state agencies the capacity to map personal relationships, track location patterns, and process voice biometrics across large populations in real time. Again, this is like their selling point. This is all publicly trackable and easily proven. So you're not like a schizo now if you talk about this. Maybe you are a schizo, but you know, it's not crazy. This idea is not crazy. You could say, oh my gosh, traffic cameras are tracking people's location. Well, I guess we already knew that, right? They're recording your phone calls. Well, I always thought they kind of were. Cop cars act as cell towers to literally track you and your metadata. That one sounded crazy up until now, but maybe it's not every cop car. Private companies and federal agencies are weaponizing technology and AI systems to track the American public and gather as much data as possible at all times. And while it sounds scary, it's necessary that you learn about these things because burying your head in the sand will not help you. If you like this video or any of my videos, please consider subscribing or engaging for the algorithm. Code bugs. Thank you.